Okay, call the meeting to order. I need a motion to accept the meeting as of April 8th, 2020 meeting.
So moved. Kevin.
Second, Jim
All in
Foot.
favor?
Aye. Jim.
I think we probably should have a roll call to make sure everybody's here.
There you go.
I'll start off. Peter Bagdadian, Chairman.
Kevin Ray, member.
Jim Foot, Vice Chair.
Bill Cordero, member.
Russ Arnold, town engineer.
Mark Witorsky, plant manager. Yep. And then can I take the screen for a second?
All right. And then we have some attendees. I'll switch over to the attendees. Let's see.
I noticed Joe was there. I didn't hear his name.
This one right here, combine that one, Brian.
Let's see here.
Okay.
The attendees want to announce who they are.
I didn't quite hear that.
Hold on one second. We're asking if the attendees want to introduce themselves.
Sure. Larry Burrell from the town of Avon.
Eric Johansson from Town of Avon Water Pollution Control Authority.
Joe Capitafaro, liaison for the town council, town of Farmington.
Hey, Mark Zazamias here from 49 Hurdle Fence. I'm on your agenda tonight. Avon.
Okay.
Are we all set?
Yes. Okay.
We have communication reports.
Hold on. Mark?
Yep, I'm here. Hold on, Brian, one second. So, you guys can hear me all right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mark, do you have
Yeah.
things going?
We'll start with the summary. Above average flows this month. The effluent ammonia was about normal. Nitrogen removal was 72%. Total phosphorus was 47.6 pounds. We were well under the permit for that. And the average biosolids were 20.
Mark, could you repeat that last part?
Yep. Our biosolids content was 20.8%, 20.65, I'm sorry. And the coli back was 5.7 milligrams a liter. Any questions on any of that?
No, you were happy with the numbers?
Yeah, we're still dialing the nitrogen. We have the normal flows, obviously. We had a ton of rain this year. So although our milligrams per liter were actually extremely low, the flows basically make up for the difference because you're just multiplying by a higher factor.
Okay.
We can move to the engineering report. You guys all have your copies, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll skim through this quickly. Centerbrook Pump Station. We can cover the private and the public sewer after that. Centerbrook Pump Station. We had a pump one failure alarm. We pulled and inspected. We verified there's nothing in the pump. Occasionally, we just get a failure on them. Definitely, we pulled pump two, and we had rags in the pump. We're still kind of dealing with some rags there from the set points that we did with the change with the INC that we were working with Motorola on. Batterson Park, they installed the new force main, and in the packets, picture of it going in, just a section of the force main. But because they're putting in two manholes, they had to basically go around the second one. So that went out without any issues. We're monitoring the flows now and checking to make sure everything's good. We're checking the hours on the pumps. Savvy has also epoxied the manholes that are at the station. So that is moving fairly smoothly. On April 3rd, we began preparing Tungus Pump Station for the INC panel. Probably going to have that done sooner, but the coronavirus has kind of slowed that down a little bit. April 24th, Wells, our subcontractor, installed the force main, which is the picture. And we also jetted the main line in front of 56 Tungus Village as a courtesy for the backup lateral. Devonwood and Southwood pump stations have the Motorola's installed, and we're currently working on the remaining stations. Repairs at the WPCF, we cleaned and greased the odor control screens and units. On April 4th, 2020, primary pump fail, no suction pressure. The new gear drives are all installed. So as I discussed them farther, basically they've lowered our amps and they've taken away any of the startup issues that we had. They decreased the oil pressure on the blowers about 15% to help with some of the high temps we had. We're currently working with Atlas Copco, Revere, and Schneider Electric on some of the programming and VFDs. Some of these are just things you start when you're troubleshooting a new plant. We greased the inlet and discharge bearings on the dewatering presses. And plant upgrade section C, I mentioned the blower issue before. It seems to be related to the cards on the PLCs. So it's not actually a short circuit, but it's in the VFD itself. So we're working with Schneider and Revere, like I mentioned, and we're troubleshooting that. On April 22nd, the grinder auger in the Headworks building failed. We disassembled it, and there's basically a shaft with a hex on the end. And from all the constant moving and running, it rounded out the hex, so it was spinning. We were able to get a full repair in 48 hours. We got 50% off, obviously, because it happened after 2 years. We do have critical spares on site now, and we did make adjustments with JWC conveyors so that we don't have that happen again. And those are pretty much it for the major things at the plant. We did have 2 new sewer connections, and the fee was collected for Tanbark Trail and for Alpine Drive. Is there anything else, Russ, that you wanted to touch on for the sewers with Avon?
We'll get to that under public correspondence.
Okay.
Are you all set, Mark?
Yeah, that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for the report or any of the summary reports or plant questions, collection questions.
No, there's no such thing as a disconnect fee, right? When you demoed those homes on Farmington Avenue.
No.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Kevin, they got a permit to disconnect.
Yeah.
That was
Okay. So they pay the fee for that permit, and that's it.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Jennifer. I added a comment to the chat window earlier, but I joined a few minutes late to the call, so just wanted to say out loud that I am here.
Okay.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. Apologies for my tardiness.
Is there any other unfinished business?
Mark, this is Jim Foote. You were going to give a update on the Patterson Park station there. You could do that after Avon if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll do the upgrade. You want to go to public correspondence?
Yeah.
Peter?
Peter, do you want to do correspondence or?
Who's Peter?
I don't know that.
Peter? Peter? Don't know what happened.
Lost it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now you're back.
Yeah, you're here, Peter.
Okay, unfinished business, the public correspondence for order complaints and sewer problem.
So, do you want me to start with that, Peter?
Unless you want to go back to the Batterson Park pump station upgrade.
Oh, we can do that after the issue with Avon.
There's no other new business.
No new business. All right, so we'll go to public correspondence. Can everybody see the letter?
Yes.
All right. Yes. So we received this letter from Avon from Larry Burrell, and there's a resident who has a failing septic system who is not within the Farmington sewer shed. Over there in the Simsbury sewer shed, and there was no sewer on their road at this point in time, and they are asking to make a temporary connection to our system until such time that the sewer in Simsbury is installed and they can I have consulted with our attorney about the legalities of it, seeing that we just had our sewer plant upgrade and we submitted for our facility study, which includes sewer sheds, to the DEP that were approved. And that facility study is incorporated in reference to our plan of conservation and development. So those issues would have to get changed. We'd have to send it back to DEP to get our sewer shed changed. We'd have to get the town of Simsbury to approve the change as well, and go from there. So I have Larry Burrell here. Larry, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, actually, Russ, thanks. You pretty much, you nailed the issue. We've got a resident who's got a failed septic system. He's in an area that's going to be scheduled for sewers in the future. But he can achieve, he can attach to the sewers in the Farmington sewer shed. It definitely is a temporary connection. Sewers will be brought to that neighborhood eventually. I defer to you guys in terms of your process relative to,
Picture of it, yeah.
meeting with your own requirements relative to plan of conservation and development. Hello?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I'm not sure, like I said, I don't know what the policy is. That's why I wrote the letter to you, and I want to keep everything on the up and up. But, it's obviously a hardship for the guy. He's got a failing septic system. Farmington Valley Health has been there and they're recommending the connection. It's our hope that you'll approve it.
Question. I went up and looked at this. And you have an easement. Larry?
Yep. Well, I'm sorry, what?
You have a easement in place.
Boy, I'm really having a hard time hearing you.
Peter, can you back your phone away?
Yeah, I think someone needs to go on mute probably if they're not talking, just in general.
We got it.
There we go.
So Larry, do you have an easement in place yet through that house on Stagecoach?
I don't believe there is, but actually the resident is on the call right now with us. It's and I know that he spoke with the resident on Stagecoach, and I believe that they've got an agreement in principle, but I don't think the easement is in place yet.
Yep, exactly. So hi, this is Mark Zazamia. So we've had the conversation with our neighbor. They are in agreement in principle. We've had mutual attorneys draw up an easement contract. We're simply waiting for this step approval, from the town of Farmington before proceeding with that, obviously. So yeah, our neighbors are being gracious to us.
Will you be connecting by a force main or gravity?
So it'll be a pump, right, Larry?
With a pump?
Right. It'll be a force, right? Low pressure sewer. Yeah.
So just so we're, I want to, like you said, Larry, be on the up and up. We got to revise that whole sewer shed, go back to TPZ, have them adjusted. So there's going to be some time
Okay, so
with that.
to be honest, like I've never been through this process with Farmington. We did have a section of the Farmington shed in Avon where we ran low pressure sewers. Actually, it was in our Canton shed, and the residents in that abutting that requested that we connect to them as well. So we actually took parcels out of the Farmington shed in favor of allowing them to go to Canton. So to make that happen, very similarly, we reached out to Canton. As a matter of fact, that was before COVID-19. So I went to the meeting with one of the members of the Avon Water Pollution Control Authority, and we talked at one point about revising them, because this is actually going to be a permanent, readjustment or whatever. And so they agreed in principle. The onus is on Avon to redraw the map. We know that, Farmington and Avon are talking about, updating our intermunicipal agreement, which would include the map change as well. So this is actually kind of timely in that respect, but that was a permanent revision. I wasn't sure if all that paperwork was needed for something that was really temporary.
Well, I would agree with you. However, not sure when the sewers are going to come into Simsbury sewer shed.
Right.
So we just, we don't want any issues to go on with our funding that we're working on finalizing for our plan upgrade. As this was all part of it, I'm a little hesitant to just say, yeah, go ahead and do it without getting the blessing from all the powers to be.
Sure, makes sense. I agree.
Would also need approval from Simsbury to allow the change. And what is the timeline for the sewers on Hurdle Fence Drive?
That's tough to say. As I know, because you and I have talked about sewer extensions in general and the challenges with doing sewer extensions, because it takes residents' interest, it takes WPC, it takes a lot to get those things enacted. I would say it's probably not going to happen for at least another 10 or 15 years, but you know how that goes. That could change in a matter of, that can change. But it's not let me just put it this way, it's not the highest on our list for sewer extensions, that's for sure.
All right, so, and that's where I'm going. What my point is, Larry, is that this is not necessarily temporary, it's permanent, and it could transpire into another homeowner. Should the current homeowner need to sell, whatever. This is going to become more, I'm looking at it as a permanent situation, because then, they're paying all this money to make this connection, do all the easement, the legal work, the cost on our end. then turn around and say, okay, you can pay costs again to tie back into the sewer once it comes into the Simsbury sewer shed. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with that.
So
Sure.
I'll add, because I realize it's a burden to everyone, that we are not seeking this as a matter of convenience. You know, it was the recommendation by Diane Harding, the engineer that we've hired that's been on our property, you know, our septic company. We did the soil test, and I mean, it was determined that, you know, putting a new septic onto the property was going to be extremely difficult, if possible at all, and that this was the simplest solution. At least not insofar as paperwork is required. So
Understood.
that's why we're pursuing it.
Understood. So now I'll just turn it back to the commission, the Farmington Water Pollution Control. Is there anything else that we want to share? Everyone has the letter with Diane Harding's recommendation. Looking for direction from our WPCA to.
Have we ever done this before, Russ?
Not in my time here, no, Kevin.
No.
Russ, Jim Foote, I'd like to agree with you as far as this has to be treated as a permanent connection here. Obviously, there's no timeline here, so I believe it has to be completed as a permanent connection.
Yeah.
As far as direction, do you want me? I'll ask you as a commission to allow me to work with Larry on the details of how this has to go. Are you okay with the connection and concept? I don't think one additional home is going to be an issue capacity-wise to the overall agreement as far as the total flow from Avon to Farmington.
Yeah, I don't think that's a factor at all. So.
No. So I'm looking if you as the WPCA, are you going to direct me to deal with Larry to get all the paperwork in order to get this connection and the sewer shed changed and allow the connection?
Russ, Jim Foote answered yes, with the caveat here that we don't have other Avon residents hooking into Farmington system because the lower rates.
Understood.
Russ, could you explain a little bit more what the downside could be of this connection?
I don't see a downside to it. It's more or less, as Avon resident said, it's just the paperwork side of it. That's going to take some time. It would be no different if they had a new home going, if they split. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Avon Farmington sewer shed. They split this house here, split this lot, and built a new home to the north of it and added a connection. It would be no different than that. We just wouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah, for me, I had a similar question as Phil, just in terms of like what is the risk overall, like cost risk, obviously would be the kinds of questions that I would have. So I think that just echoes sort of where my head was coming from too.
Cost risk to who?
Farmington?
Jim Foote again. Would there be a connection charge?
Not to us. That would be all handled through Avon. Like I said, this would be similar to, this house next to the Avon, the label Avon Farmington sewer shed, and they split the lot and added a house. If they added houses within our sewer shed, we don't necessarily are aware of how many houses they are connecting. And getting back to Jennifer's question, there will be some costs involved with reproducing the map, going back to the TPZ, going back to DEP, there's some cost involved with that, which I would turn to Larry and just ask him now.
Hey, Russ, I think there was a grandfather clock that might have overridden the question. Was there a question for Larry there?
No, I'm just,
was there?
no, I'm making a statement that the town of Avon would be responsible for the costs that we would incur to get the sewer shed map changed and approved.
Gotcha.
That makes sense to me.
So you're agreeable to pay for what the costs are.
Right. But remember what I said too, that, as Russ, we're looking at doing a revision to the intermunicipal agreement and a revision to the map anyway. So, as I said, there were some changes on the Farmington Canton sewer shed line, for lack of a better term. Anyway, so I know we have to revise the map. So it's perfectly, we can do a lot to help make that work.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of any changes that you made between Avon and Canton. So is there any other questions about this from the Farmington WPCA?
Jim Foot, none. Russ?
Hey, it's Jennifer Wynn. Just nope, no additional questions or concerns. Just kind of a question or statement that Jim has said earlier around just the precedent, right? Like this is for a specific situation, obviously.
Correct. That's the way I would take it. And I think we would come up with a written agreement as to why we're allowing this in accordance with the documentation that the town of Avon has provided, specific to this address. And,
Great. No further concerns, Jennifer Wynn.
Peter, do you have any other questions?
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have no problem as long as we, do everything on the up and up and there's nothing hidden.
Yep. Understood. Okay. So Larry, we'll send over an email with a letter on it, laying out the process of what we have to do here, and we'll go from there. Does that work?
Yeah, I think you just said you're going to send an email to me.
Yeah, I'll write a letter. I will write a letter and send it to you via email, laying out the process and specific to this one lot. We'll also have to get the town of Simsbury's approval as well. I don't know if they're going to have, I would assume based on the requirements for the sewer shed mapping that they would have to change their mapping as well. But I'll leave that up to Simsbury to talk about.
Okay. Well, we'll initiate a conversation with Tony Piazza and their WPCA for sure.
Yep, just copy me on any correspondence that you have with them.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions about this issue?
None.
Great. Well, thank you everybody from the Farmington side. Appreciate your time and consideration.
Yep, same here. I was just going to echo the same sentiment. This is Mark Zazamia again. I just want to say thanks very much. I appreciate the time, everyone.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks.
We are back.
Are we all set?
Yes, we're all set, Peter. We'll go back to item H for Batterson Pump Station upgrade.
Patterson Park Pump Station?
Yep.
So, you guys have the one picture on the packet where we had the actual bypass connection for the section that's going around the new mills. basically up to date. We're working on the submittals. Today we just submitted it for the pumps, and we're working on the one lift, and we should have the electrical submittal finished tomorrow. They also did close the manholes at the end of April, so the 3 new manholes up front are also epoxy for hydrogen sulfide, and everything so far has gone smooth.
One thing I just want to let everybody know, we had a change order for about $5,000. So we need to cut down into connections and disconnect from the old force main and reinstall the new force main, connecting back to the original. It was asbestos pipe. We had to pay to properly dispose of that, and that was $5,000.
Hi, it's Jennifer. Sorry, there's some really distracting feedback on the line. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, no, it's something's going on with Peter, and I mute him, and I apologize. I forgot to mute him again, so I've been muting him and unmuting him.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thanks. Yeah, it's just
It's
wanted to
fine.
let you know in case you weren't aware.
Yeah, no, I have a headache from it as well.
We've heard it from the start.
Yeah. So
Okay.
everyone understand what I said about the change order for the asbestos pipe?
Yes.
Yes, Jim Foot.
All right. Peter, you're back.
Yeah, I'm here, but I keep getting this feedback, and I'm trying my best to listen to everything, and it's driving me crazy.
Same here. All right, so we are done with the Patterson Park pump station upgrade, and we're on to item K.
Yeah, okay. Any unfinished business we have to take care of?
None that I know of.
Fair motion to adjourn?
Jim Foot, so moved.
Kevin Ray, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry for my mess up over here.
No problem. We'll work on it, Peter, for next time.
Great. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You too, thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, Russ, stay on for a second.
Yep, you got it.
Back to our hiking on the Metacomet.
Back to what?
Hiking on the Metacomet.
Yes, sir.
At the reservoir, there's a large concrete structure that's sort of uphill from the reservoir. What exactly is that?
Large concrete structure.
That's
Oh,
the water tank for the old Unionville Water Company, Jim.
right. That's their storage tank.
Storage tank.
Okay. It didn't really look like a storage tank. I mean, I see the door that enters in. I don't know where that leads, but
Yeah, you're talking the one that's right out.
off Route 6.
Yeah,
Right on Route 6. Yeah.
Correct.
That's their storage tank.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had to pump the water up, and then they store it, and then they.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's what they use it for.
So obviously that's not being used today, correct?
No, that is being used today. They-
What feeds off of that?
That goes back down into Farmington Center.
Okay, I didn't realize that the reservoir actually was used.
No, the reservoir isn't used. They use that as just a storage tank. They pump water through the system into that tank, and then it feeds back down into the system.
Okay, where does the water come from?
Over there, it's probably coming from the MDC connection mainly.
Okay. All right, interesting. I just wasn't real clear on what it was, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's not that old, Jim, there. That's what, 25 years old, maybe?
Yeah, maybe even less than that.
Yeah, yeah, it's not that old.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Their old storage tank from the reservoir, it was, where they just took down a building at the intersection of Diamond Glen and Reservoir.
All right.
yeah,
I want to say like a 10,000 gallon concrete storage tank under that.
yeah. Yeah, they've grassed it over now.
Right.
Now, as part of the hiking trail, one of the neighbors there I bumped into said that part of this trail was actually considered the, I don't know whether it's the old road to New Britain, but was that actually an old road back there?
Yeah. Yep.
Up and over the mountain and down across 84, if I remember right.
Yeah, yeah. And it goes like into New Britain. Yeah, that's right.
Not that I remember the road, but I remember seeing some plans, some old plans on it, old maps.
Well, it's there, Jim. You would pick up that behind the mulch plant there, and then it goes into New Britain. Settlement, it's called Settlement Road.
Yep.
That goes up behind my house, behind Trumbull and South Ridge Road. It parallels that, and the Pinnacle Rock.
Okay, because I know that it, you know, it at one point it intersects Reservoir Road.
Well, that's, yeah, but that's, well, right, that it used to dump out onto Route 6, but it goes into New Britain. So if you go by behind the old Tomaso Quarry, which is now the mulch plant, that it goes all the way into New Britain, just about by where that the motor vehicle is, Jim, in New Britain.
Okay. Pretty interesting piece of history there, because I don't know what kind of, you know, obviously it must have been horse and buggies that they used to bring on that, because quite a elevation climb to get up to that ridge.
All right. Are you guys still seeing my shared screen?
Yep.
Yeah, we can see it.
No, I'm not, but yeah.
Yeah, so I got the GIS, or town GIS on it. You can see here's Settlement Road
Right.
off of Route 6 here. It cuts through over the mountain and goes all the way across over to 84.
Yeah.
And hangs just to the south, or I guess that would be south of that big wetland along 84 behind Fenneman Estates.
Russ, where's Reservoir on this?
Right here.
The Reservoir Road. Okay, there's Reservoir. Yeah.
Yep. And you'll see this little structure, this structure here, that's the water tank.
Okay, so it doesn't look like that Settlement Road actually does intersect Reservoir Road.
No, but who knows, you know, where it went years ago.
Okay, because where I pick it up is right next to Bliss and that Dunham Court.
Over here.
Yep.
Yep. And through the reservoir property. There's Bliss's here. And cut through. And Jim, you are over here, aren't you? Where are you? Over here, 150? 54?
No, 78. Yep.
178.
But what I've been doing is from my house, I walk down mountain, turn on Reservoir, and then there's a path between Bliss and that neighbor on the corner at Dunham Lane.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep. But that's it right there.
All right. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I was saying as part of that hiking trail, there's actually an old Ford Pinto in the middle of the woods there. I don't know how it got there.